Well, it's not just Britain, really. After the last grueling tour of the world in 1979, where we played 120 shows over a 9-month period, we were just burnt out. And it was the first chance we'd had in 9, 10 years of having a home life, and I think we all really felt like, okay, let's stop for a while. Certainly, the feeling in the band, the feeling at the end of the tour was we were just exhausted and pretty burned out on Supertramp as a whole. Certainly I was, and I needed a break, and we weren't quite sure what was going to happen from that time onwards. So we just went our separate ways and settled down. I had 2 children come along. Bob, the drummer, had children come along, and basically we got into a home life. And when it came time to see what we wanted to do with our lives, what we wanted to do with Supertramp, it was 2 years later, and we came together and decided to have another shot at making an album. But by that time, we'd all really got into such different lifestyles. I'd moved 500 miles away to Northern California, so it was very difficult to feel like we were still a group again. And but anyway, we did Famous Last Words, and it was a pretty difficult album to make, a difficult experience. I moved to Northern California and as well as buying a house, built a studio, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone. However, I built it, and that's where we did most of Famous Last Words. Well, I feel Famous Last Words wasn't a progression from Breakfast in America. It was a very frustrating album to make. It far didn't come up to the expectations that we all had for it. I know the songs that were lying around that didn't make it on the album, some much more powerful songs and much more potent songs than actually did make it on the album. So it was a real disappointment for me, that album. I think the sound was out of date, and I don't think it was a real progression from Breakfast in America. I really, as much as I don't like actually most of the music that I hear being made, it doesn't really do much for me. It's like it's kind of like there's very little substance to it, to most of what I hear at the moment. I do like the new sounds that are being used and the new approaches that are being used. I'm glad people are starting to break out of the old rock and roll mold